Yo, what's going on? Everybody, the Boxing Sword checking in here. And this is, our preview of Saturday's card that's going to be shown live on Showtime as in Atlantic City. The main event, Gary Russell Jr. versus Matias for the WBC featherweight title. We also have Petros Ananyan going up against Matias. And you'll also have Tuso Nyambaya King Tug. They're going against Zakaria Lucas in the televised card. You got Zakaria Lucas as a replacement opponent for Vic Matias that, was scratched there from the fight against Tuso Nyambaya. Nyambaya had his fights against Gary Russell Jr. in 2020. And then also against Chris Colbert at 130 pounds. Those were his only two losses. Also had, a close win over Kobe Soldier Breedy in 2020 as well. And now he's back in the ring going up against Zakaria Lucas. Zakaria Lucas is coming from Namibia. Had I think it is a one fight over in the States and knows that there's a lot on the line in this particular bout here against King Tug. King Tug is a very skilled guy, from Mongolian descent. Had his, 12 rounds against Gary Russell Jr. in February over in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Also had, the close bout against Kobe Soldier Breedy. He did score 2 knockdowns in that particular fight, but Kobe Breedy did kind of adjust and get himself back into the fight and really made it very close that it was, a close decision there. But did come in as a replacement opponent for Chris Colbert. Chris Colbert that holds like an interim title or held an interim title there at 130 pounds. But, Chris Colbert clearly won that fight against King Tug. But now King Tug is kind of like back down there at 126 pounds. Does want to see if he can get past his fight against Zakaria Lucas and does see that he wants to get back in the ring with the WBC featherweight champion, Gary Russell Jr. So that's like the first bout that's on the card. You also do have a rematch as Matias goes up against Petros Ananyan. Very close fight. Ananyan pulled it off, given Matias, his only loss of his professional career. 17-1, 17 KOs, and Matias has been, very impressive in the last couple of fights that he's had. They're in a very deep 140-pound division. Here he goes up against Petros Ananyan, very skilled fighter. They had a good close fight in their first bout. Very action-packed there in that particular bout that Petros Ananyan was able to get a decision there. But you have Matias, someone that I feel like is one of those guys that is a viable contender there in the 140-pound division. And, we can see if he can get through this fight. And then that could set him up for potential bouts against a lot of 140-pound contenders out there, the Brandon Lees, the Gary, Antoine Russells that are out there, and a few, other guys, so that is going to be a very, very intriguing bout there at the super lightweight division. So definitely we want to check that out. And of course, the main event, Gary Russell Jr. against Matias. Gary Russell Jr., of course, longtime WBC featherweight champion, the longest reigning champion out there in the sport of boxing, going up against Matias. Matias coming in there with an unbeaten record. Did, have a stoppage victory in his last fight. His guys are looking forward to, setting it up this fight against Gary Russell Jr. Of course, he's, one of those products of Manny Pacquiao Promotions. Sean Gibbons manages Matias. And, with Gary Russell Jr., there's been over the reports over the past few days in reference to his overall condition, that he has like a slight injury. Recently, of course, he had the thing with the weigh-in where he had to shed down about, just about a half pound, maybe, or whatever it is. But if y'all know how, scales go, sometimes they'll be off by about 0.2 pounds. So that wasn't really much of a problem there for Gary Russell Jr. But you also have the whole thing there where, he was dealing with, condition of his father, who's like head trainer, but, he, kind of like was, sits off in the ringside over in the corner and stuff like that. So you do have that. And also, what's going on with the thing here with Magsayo. Of course, he does look like he's, pretty big. And then comes down to 126 pounds to make weight. So we got to see how that will affect Magsayo in this particular bout. So you do have that coming up here on Saturday night over in Atlantic City. It should be a very good card for y'all to check out. So tune in. We'll see what the results are for those fights, and be sure to subscribe to the Boxing Source here on YouTube. We really appreciate it. On that note, folks, I'm out. Peace.